We've been sold a lie that to keep a man, we have to be easy going and chill, but chill is the fastest way to become a solved mystery that he eventually takes for granted. If you want a man to look at you with the kind of depth that leads to a lifetime of devotion, you have to lead with respect. Men don't fall in love with what you give them, they fall in love with the standard you require them to meet. Today, I'm giving you the 4 rules that transform you from a temporary sentiment into a permanent investment anchor in his life. We've been sold a lie that to keep a man, we have to be easy going, a chill, and have 0 requirements. But chill is the fastest way to become a solved mystery that he eventually ignores. If you want a man to look at you with the kind of depth that leads to a lifetime of devotion, you have to lead with respect. Men don't fall in love with what you give them, they fall in love with the standard you require them to meet. Today, we are discussing the 4 rules that transform you from a temporary sentiment into a permanent standard in his mind. Rule A1: the 24-hour standard of intent. A high-status woman does not accept last-minute access to her life. When you require a man to plan in advance, you aren't being difficult. You are protecting your sovereign presence. You are signaling that your life is a moving train with a destination, and if he wants a seat, he has to book it. This creates an immediate investment anchor. The rule B21: the non-reactive boundary. When he tests your limits, and he will, your power lies in your non-reactive anchor. You don't scream, you don't chase, and you don't over-explain. You simply state your boundary with a selective softness that is as firm as iron. When he realizes he can't displace your peace, he begins to see you as his safe harbor. Rule 3: the value over validation shield. Most women check a man's face to see if they are doing okay. A sovereign woman checks her own heart. You must prioritize your opinion's sovereignty over his temporary approval. When a man sees that you aren't auditioning for him, he stops being a consumer and starts being an admirer. Rule 4: the willingness to walk. Finality. This is the ultimate rule of the fortress. The moment a man realizes you are truly willing to leave a situation that doesn't respect your legacy, he stops playing games. You aren't threatening to leave. You are simply so committed to your own standard that staying in a low-stakes environment is no longer an option for you. When you apply these 4 rules, you aren't just dating, you are building the architecture of devotion. You are showing him that you are a lifetime discovery. And for the right man, that is the only discovery that matters, the qualifying filter transitioning from available to achievable. In the standard dating narrative, women are often encouraged to be open and receptive, which is frequently misinterpreted as being a public commodity. When you are available to everyone at any time, your value in the eyes of a high-status man plummets. Why? Because a man who operates from a legacy of competence, a man who has spent his life working to achieve high-stakes goals, does not value what is simply given. He values what he has to qualify for. The qualifying filter is the high-status mechanism that forces a man to prove his character, his intent, and his consistency before he is granted access to your safe harbor. The death of the participation trophy relationship. Most modern dating dynamics are built on low stakes interactions, the who-up text, the last-minute invite, the low-effort digital chatter. When you accept these, you are signaling that your bar is at ground level. You are treating your attention like a participation trophy. The qualifying filter changes the game by requiring a man to meet a standard before he receives the reward of your time. This isn't about playing hard to get. That is a low-status game based on manipulation. This is about being hard to earn. When you require a man to plan a date in advance or demonstrate emotional consistency, you are filtering for the consumers who just want a quick hit of dopamine, while leaving the door open for the investors who see you as a lifetime discovery. You are effectively telling him, my life is a moving train, and if you want a seat, you must show that you have the character to be a passenger. An image, a cinematic shot of a grand, intricate gate leading to a beautiful, sunlit garden. The gate is not closed out of malice, but its craftsmanship indicates that what lies behind it is rare and protected. It represents the qualifying filter of a woman's life. Be the respect-dopamine loop of the hunt. The masculine brain is biologically wired to value the earned victory. When you apply a qualifying filter, you are triggering the respect-dopamine loop. Every time he meets one of your standards, whether it's respecting a boundary or showing up on time, his brain registers a win. Because the win was earned, he attaches respect to the dopamine hit. If you give him everything up front, the dopamine spikes, but the respect is absent. This leads to the pump and dump cycle, where interest fades as soon as the novelty wears off. But when he has to qualify for your selective softness, his investment grows. He begins to view your approval not as a social reflex, but as a sovereign choice. He isn't just dating you, he is achieving a relationship with a woman of standard, the sovereign finality. Protecting the sanctuary, the qualifying filter is your ultimate defense against low-stakes men. It ensures that the only men who enter your sanctuary are the ones who have the legacy of competence to stay there. Hemage, a high-contrast photo of a woman looking at her phone with a calm, neutral expression. She is not rushing to reply. She is in her sovereign presence, evaluating the quality of the interaction before deciding if it's worth her energy. By mastering the qualifying filter, you move from being a choice in a man's life to being an imperative. You teach him that your presence is a limited discovery. When a man realizes that he cannot by or charm his way past your standards, but must instead qualify through his actions, he will move mountains to ensure he never loses the spot he worked so hard to earn. The predictability paradox. The strength of unshakable consistency. In the world of dating advice, we are often told that mystery is the key to attraction. We are told to be unpredictable, to keep him guessing, and to play games with our response times to stay interesting. But for a high-value man, a man who deals with chaos, risk, and shifting variables in his professional legacy, unpredictability isn't attractive, it's exhausting. The truly magnetic force that commands deep respect is what I call the predictability paradox. This is the high-status realization that while your actions should be a constant source of lifetime discovery, your boundaries must be as predictable as the sunrise. The anchor in the storm. A high-value man lives in a world where everyone is trying to tilt his reality. He is used to people folding under pressure or changing their values to please him. When he encounters a woman who possesses opinion sovereignty, he discovers a rare phenomenon at non-reactive anchor. The paradox is this: the more predictable your standards are, the more unpredictable and exciting you become as a woman. If he knows with 100% certainty that you will walk away from a low-stakes interaction, he stops testing the fence and starts respecting the fortress. Your consistency creates a safe harbor of psychological safety. He doesn't have to wonder which version of you he's going to get today. He knows he is getting the woman of standard. This reliability allows him to drop his mask of competence because he trusts the structural integrity of your character. Image a massive, ancient lighthouse standing firm against a violent, crashing sea. The light is steady and unwavering. It represents the predictability paradox, the steady light that a man can use to navigate his way home. The respect-dopamine of the known bound. Most people think dopamine comes from the new. In a long-term legacy relationship, the most profound dopamine hits come from the earned. When you have a predictable boundary, for example, a rule that you do not accept last-minute dates, and he successfully plans a beautiful evening 3 days in advance to meet that standard, he receives a massive reward. Because your rule was predictable, his win feels legitimate. He didn't trick you into seeing him, he met the standard. This builds a respect-dopamine loop. He begins to value the relationship more because he knows the all rules of engagement. You aren't a moving target. You are a moving train on a fixed track. He knows exactly where you are going and what is required to stay on board. This consistency eliminates the performance pressure of the game and replaces it with the deep satisfaction of a shared architecture, the sovereign finality. Consistency as power. A solved mystery is a woman who changes her mind based on his mood. A sovereign woman is a woman whose values are a fixed point in the universe. Image a high definition close up of a compass needle pointing firmly north, even as the hand holding it moves. This symbolizes the predictability paradox, the internal direction that never wavers regardless of external circumstances. By mastering the predictability paradox, you move from being a temporary sentiment to a permanent standard in his life. You aren't boring because you are consistent, you are essential because you are the only thing in his world he can truly count on. When a man realizes that your selective softness is backed by a predictable, ironclad set of rules, his respect for you becomes an unbreakable foundation for a lifetime of devotion. The investment flaw. Establishing the minimum wage of your heart in any marketplace, the value of a commodity is determined by its price. In the marketplace of intimacy, if you set the price of your attention at zero, that is exactly how much a man will invest to keep it. Most women enter the dating world with an open ceiling policy. They focus on how high the passion can go, but they fail to establish an investment floor. This floor is the non-negotiable baseline level of effort, consistency, and respect a man must maintain just to stay in the room. Without an investment floor, you aren't a safe harbor. You are a free port where any consumer can dock, deplete your resources, and leave without consequence. The cost of entry vs. the cost of maintenance. A high-value man driven by his legacy of competence understands that anything worth having carries a cost. He doesn't respect discounts. When you establish an investment floor, you are setting the minimum wage for your presence. This isn't about material demands, it's about emotional currency. Does he plan? Does he follow through? Does he respect your sovereign presence, even when it's inconvenient for him? If he drops below this floor, if he becomes inconsistent, low stakes, or treats you like a solved mystery, the floor gives way. You don't nag him to come back up. You simply withdraw your selective softness. This creates an immediate vacuum of uncertainty that forces him to realize that access to you is a privilege, not a right. You are a moving train. If he stops fueling the engine of investment, he simply gets left at the station. Can imagine a cinematic, high contrast shot of an elegant marble floor in a grand hall. The floor is solid, unyielding, and polished. It represents the investment floor, the foundation upon which the entire architecture of the relationship must be built. Triggering the sunk cost of devotion. Psychologically, we value what we invest in. The respect-dopamine loop thrives on this principle. When a man has to work to meet your standard, when he has to earn your time through thoughtful planning and consistent character, he builds a sunk cost of devotion. He looks at you and thinks, I have work to be here. I have qualified for this woman. This investment is what creates the fortress around your relationship. A man is far less likely to walk away from a woman who required him to be his best self than from a woman who let him be his lazy self. By maintaining a high investment floor, you are actually helping him become the version of himself he is most proud of. You are inviting him to rise to your level, turning the connection from a temporary sentiment into a lifetime discovery. The sovereign finality, the power of no. The investment floor is held in place by your willingness to say no. It is the ultimate expression of opinion sovereignty. You must be more committed to your floor than you are to his company. Henimej a high definition close up of a hand firmly but gracefully closing a heavy, leather-bound book. This visualizes the sovereign decision to end a low investment chapter and maintain the standard. By mastering the investment floor, you eliminate the bread crumbing and the situationships that plague modern dating. You ensure that every man in your life is an investor in your legacy, not a consumer of your light. When he realizes that your love is the reward for his highest level of investment, he won't just respect you, he will spend his entire life trying to ensure he never drops below the floor you've built. The sovereignty signal, the power of the woman who can walk away in the economy of attraction. Neediness is a hyper-inflationary force that devalues your presence. When a man senses that your happiness is entirely contingent on his approval, he stops being an investor and starts being a manager of your emotions. To command deep, lasting respect, you must broadcast The sovereignty signal. This is the psychological frequency that tells a man, "Oh, I chose you, but I do not need you." It is the ultimate high status signal because it proves that you are the architect of your own atmosphere. The fortress of self-sourced joy. The sovereignty signal is rooted in opinion sovereignty. It is the visible evidence that you have a moving train life, a career, a mission, a circle of influence, and an internal world that was thriving before he arrived and will continue to thrive if he leaves. Most women accidentally send a vacancy signal, suggesting they are looking for a man to fill a hole in their identity. A sovereign woman sends a sanctuary signal, suggesting her life is a legacy of competence that he is being invited to join. When you display this signal, you eliminate performance pressure for the man. He realizes he isn't responsible for the weight of your entire emotional well-being. This creates a safe harbor where he can actually relax. Paradoxically, by showing him that you are capable of being happy without him, you make him want to be the source of your happiness even more. He sees that your selective softness is a gift, not a demand. Image. A cinematic shot of a woman walking confidently down a busy city street, her eyes fixed on the horizon with a slight, knowing smile. She isn't looking around for attention, she is the sovereign of her own journey, and the world seems to move around her. The willingness to walk. Finality, the most potent form of the sovereignty signal, is your willingness to walk. This is not a threat used to manipulate, it is a standard used to protect. A high-value man respects a woman who has a point of exit. If he violates your investment flaw or disregards your predictability paradox, and you remain in the relationship, you are signaling that your sovereign presence is for sale. When you broadcast the sovereignty signal, you are telling him, "I love the architecture we are building together, but I will not live in a house that is on fire." This triggers the respect-dopamine loop. He respects the strength of your boundaries, and he finds a deep sense of security in knowing that you are with him because you want to be, not because you are afraid to be alone. You are a peer of character who keeps him on his toes and inspires him to stay at his best. The sovereign. Finality. Becoming the prize. A solved mystery is a woman who has nowhere else to go. A sovereign woman is a lifetime discovery because her internal world is so vast that he can never fully possess it. An image. A high-definition close-up of a woman's eyes, calm and unshakable, reflecting the light of a distant horizon. It captures the sovereignty signal, the look of a woman who belongs to herself first. By mastering the sovereignty signal, you transition from being a consumer of his attention to being the prize he must continuously qualify for. You aren't playing a game, you are living a reality where your self-respect is the highest law. When a man encounters this signal, he doesn't just feel attraction, he feels a profound, soul-level respect that makes him want to commit his entire legacy to you. The legacy of competence. Why a woman with a mission is irresistible. In the world of attraction, we often talk about feminine energy as something purely passive, soft, and receptive. But true, high-status attraction, the kind that makes a man of substance commit his entire life to you, requires a backbone of legacy of competence. This is the psychological weight you carry when you are a woman who actually does things. Whether you are building a business, mastering a craft, or leading a community, your competence creates a gravitational pull that a high-value man cannot ignore. He isn't just looking for a partner, he is looking for a peer of character who has built a world worth joining. The power of the moving train. A woman without a legacy is a stationary target. She is waiting for a man to arrive so her life can finally begin. To a high-value man, this feels like performance pressure. He realizes that the moment he steps into her life, he becomes her only source of entertainment and purpose. But a woman with a legacy of competence is a moving train. She has a destination, a schedule, and a mission that is already in motion. When a man sees you in your element, exuding opinion sovereignty as you solve a complex problem or lead a project, it triggers a massive respect-dopamine loop. He isn't just attracted to your look, he is attracted to your capability. He sees that you don't need him to fix your world. which makes the moments you choose to invite him into your safe harbor feel like a massive promotion. You aren't asking him to build the tracks, you are inviting him to be the captain of a journey that is already legendary. The fortress of self-sourced value. Your competence acts as your fortress. It is the evidence that you have a life outside of the hunt. When a man knows that you have a legacy to protect, he realizes that he cannot treat you like a low-stakes interaction. He sees that your time is a finite, precious resource. This is the ultimate qualifying filter. If he wants access to a woman who is achieving great things, he understands he must show up with a matching level of intent and integrity. An image, a cinematic, high-definition shot of a woman in an elegant, structured coat standing in a high-rise office or a creative studio looking out over the city. She isn't waiting for a call, she is reviewing a blueprint or a strategy. She is the architect of her own success. Competence also creates selective softness. The contrast between the powerful, competent woman the world sees and the warm, vulnerable woman he sees in private is the most intoxicating drug a man can consume. He feels like he has qualified for the sanctuary of a queen. He doesn't just want to date you, he wants to protect the space where such a powerful woman finally feels safe to let her guard down. The sovereign finality. From wanted to essential, a solved mystery has no mission. Once she is won, there is nothing left to discover. But a woman with a legacy of competence is a lifetime discovery. Every new milestone you reach, every new skill you master, resets the clock of attraction. Image, a close-up of a woman's hands. Perhaps one hand is wearing a sophisticated watch, the other is holding a tool of her trade, a pen, a camera, a violin. It represents the legacy of competence, the hands that build a life. By building your own legacy, you stop being a consumer of a man's life and start being the prize he aspires to. You aren't looking for a man to give you an identity. You are a woman of sovereign presence who offers him the one thing he can't find anywhere else, a partnership with a woman who is as formidable as she is beautiful. The respect-dopamine loop, the biological engine of devotion. In the early stages of a relationship, attraction is often fueled by cheap dopamine, the rush of a new text, the excitement of a first date, or the purely physical pull of novelty. But cheap dopamine has a short half-life. It's the reason why so many spark-filled romances fizzle out within 3 months. To build a bond that is unshakable, you must transition him from cheap dopamine to what I call the respect-dopamine loop. This is a high-status psychological cycle where a man's pleasure response is triggered not just by your presence, but by his own successful effort to meet your standards. The science of the earned reward. A man who operates from a legacy of competence is biologically wired to value what he has to work for. When you establish a qualifying filter, for instance, requiring him to plan a date in advance rather than accepting a last-minute "who up" text, you are setting a challenge. When he meets that challenge and you reward him with your selective softness and appreciation, his brain releases dopamine. But here is the crucial difference. Because that dopamine was triggered by an act of respect for your boundaries, his brain anchors that pleasure to your high value. He doesn't just feel lucky, he feels qualified. This creates a loop. He learns that the path to his own greatest emotional satisfaction is through respecting your sovereign presence. He stops looking for ways to bypass your rules and starts looking for ways to honor them, because the reward of your genuine connection feels earned, not given. Her image, a close-up, high-definition shot of a mountain climber's hand reaching the peak of a jagged rock. The sunlight is catching the grit and determination. This symbolizes the respect-dopamine loop, the satisfaction that only comes from a difficult, respected ascent, moving from consumer to investor. Most women inadvertently kill the respect-dopamine loop by making it too easy. They offer the sanctuary of their love before the man has proven he can protect the fortress. When you give the reward for free, you turn the man into a consumer. He enjoys the dopamine, but he lacks the respect, and eventually he becomes bored. By maintaining your investment floor, you force him to stay in the role of the investor. Every time he invests effort, consistency, or emotional maturity to stay on your moving train. He becomes more psychologically locked in to your value. He begins to view you as a lifetime discovery because the price of your attention remains consistently high. You aren't a solved mystery that he's already paid for. You are a high value asset that requires